going to be crossing over to Major General Anil Verma to tell us more about his perspective. Mr. Verma, thank you so much for remaining with us. Sir, what is your initial assessment of the SBI seeking more time to furnish details? Multiple voices are saying it doesn't necessarily need an extra 3 to 4 months from the bank side.
Yeah, it is a bit surprising considering the fact that it is the largest bank of India and it has the largest UPI interface in the whole country, and it employs a huge number of IT specialists. And I think almost about 1,500 crores was spent by them to set up this whole digital process of electoral bonds when they were introduced. Uh, Apprehensions were conveyed by a lot of people once the Supreme Court judgment came out that, and they were published in media news, that there may be a delay in the disclosure of the names, etc. Now, obviously, the Supreme Court's intention was that before the elections, these details should be made known to the public, because that is the right of information. That was one of the main reasons which the court gave in its judgment. However, we have seen in this, though we can pick holes in the application also, which has been filed. But what is surprising is that the entire process is not 100% digital. They have mentioned in the application that there is some physical format also in which they are put in a sealed cover, and then these details are sent to the SBI bank in Mumbai and all that. So it's a complicated thing. But we have full faith in the Supreme Court, and probably they will have a hearing in this, and ADR will oppose the extension of time which the SBI has sought, because we feel this must be disclosed as soon as possible, as given by it. And another factor is that Supreme Court, in their judgment, when they have given a particular amount of time, I'm sure they know how much time it would take. After all, they are themselves digitizing things in a big way in Supreme Court. So, having said that, the other, I would say, the State Bank has taken 17 days to come to this conclusion that they need more time. And this is just when 6th is the
And that's
last date on which
exactly
they were
what I wanted
supposed
to
to
ask
give
you
all the
about, because
details to the.
absolutely, because on the 15th of February, the Supreme Court, that is when the
Yes,
Supreme
please.
Court had given a deadline of March 6th to the SBI. Yesterday, the SBI had sought an extension, like you just mentioned, and the extension isn't just of 1 or 2 weeks, but around 3 to 4 months, which is post the elections. What is your take now on the SBI's time taken to seek this extension?
That is exactly what I was saying, that it is curious that just when the deadline was approaching, 2 days before that, they have sought 4 months extension. I mean, it has taken them 17 days, that is, the judgment came out on 15th February, to decide that, they will need so much time. As it is, there are a lot of criticism on Twitter, I mean, the erstwhile Twitter, now X, and people are saying it should not be taking this much of time. So we have full faith, whatever the Supreme Court decides. But if more extension is given time to SBI, of course, we will oppose it, and we will follow whatever the constitutional path is, because we have done it in 2002, 2003 also, when the election affidavits thing was fought by all the political parties. But eventually, the Supreme Court gave a verdict that no, it's the right of the common man to know the complete details of the candidates who are contesting elections. So we'll follow the constitutional path, and we have full faith in the Supreme Court.
There was also a very important statement which was made by the Supreme Court, as you mentioned, that it's important for the common man to know. Now, speaking of that, what is your perception of how the public will react once the electoral bond information is released? Do you think it will have a significant impact on the voter?
Well, I can't comment on that. You see, it is because the voter to decide, which way he wants to vote and whether it will make a significant this particular. I mean, disclosing of the names will give, but at least everybody will know which corporates have funded which political party. And then the voter can take a call, whatever way he wishes to vote.
That's true. Now, the SC has struck down the electoral bond scheme as unconstitutional. In your view, how can India make its elections more transparent? And do you think there's even a need to?
Of course, there is a need to, because the political party funding is the fountainhead of corruption. We all know the amount of black money and cash which is still being used. Even, by the way, even when the electoral bond scheme was in force, even then you had seen so many raids and you found mountains of cash being discovered from people's politicians' houses. So it is not that there is a magic wand by which, the corruption and this misuse of money will be removed. There are a number of suggestions which have been given by various committees and law commission and the civil society people, but unfortunately the will is not there with the political parties to see any type of reforms. They want the status quo, they want this, and that is why we see this rise of criminality and money power, what we call muscle power and money power in our political system. And there is a need. I mean, I always believe that if our country is, of course, on the path to development, and our GDP is going to increase and all that, but if we are going to spend more money on election than USA, like we did last time in 2019, does it make sense? So,
Mhm.
we can't even compare the economies, those US and this thing. They're, I think, at least 10 times or 25 times more, 15 times bigger than ours. So, is there a need to really spend this much money on elections? I don't think so. At least ADR doesn't think so. That is why we have another petition in the Supreme Court on which we want a ceiling to be given on the
Mhm.
political parties' expenditure. As we all know, there is a ceiling on the expenditure which the candidate contesting the MLA's election or MP's elections is there. Though even that.
All right, there seems to be a bit of a technical issue with our guest there, but we'd like to thank Major General Anil Verma for joining us on the broadcast and giving us his perspective on the entire matter of the electoral bonds, the Supreme Court, and the SBI.